The days of going to the thrift store and like sifting through the racks and finding things is essentially over. What's up, everybody? Brian here. I want to talk about a video that I saw recently by Zac Rios. Basically, in this video, he calls out a lot of these bigger resellers like Tech and Sports, Hustle at Home Mom, the Homeschooling Picker, guys like these that find a bunch of good stuff and talks about kind of how it's not realistic to find this stuff all the time and do this full time in your area. Now, as someone who does this full time and has been for a while, I used to want to scale this business like over 100K net a year, and I no longer want to do that. I want to keep it around like the 60K mark and then just focus on other things. So from that perspective, I kind of want to go over his video and some of my thoughts on some of these bigger YouTubers, what they're saying, and what's really realistic. All right, so here's the introduction so you guys know what I'm talking about.
So in the last video I made, it seems like some people enjoyed the honesty of reselling items online, especially watching other YouTubers make videos about what they do. And I thought I'd make a dedicated video in this going over everything, just because I know with a lot of the bigger reseller channels, it's partially actually making money off of the items that they're showing that they're reselling, but then on top of it is content, which is kind of entertainment at the same time. And once you get into that territory, it kind of becomes more of just being like popular and happy and showing all the scores that they get, you know, big.
All right, first of all, as I'm editing, I realized I didn't add in the new microphone when I made the new scene, so the quality of my microphone's going to be bad, so sorry about that, guys. I want to say it's okay to like get to a point where in anything in life where you're doing something, you get good at it, and then eventually you want, it's like, I feel like it's a natural progression to want to like teach others how to do it for multiple reasons. One, it feels a lot better. Like actually making the money is way less fulfilling than like teaching somebody else how to do it. That's just like who we are as people. So that's one thing. And second, teaching somebody how to do it is always less, there's less like physical and mental effort doing that than the actual thing. That's just how like kind of anything is. Like if you're, you know, like a welder, like, yeah, you get really, really good at it, you make a lot of money, and eventually you want to get to a point where you have your own business or you teach people how to do it because it's a lot less, you know, physical labor, and that's just kind of the natural next progression, right? So that's kind of with anything in life. So, I wouldn't get down. I'm not saying he's necessarily doing this, but I wouldn't get down on anybody for teaching somebody after they've been doing something for a while.
Money deals and all of that, because that kind of content gets a lot more viewers than just constantly going over, you know, going out to Goodwill again today, grinding it out for another 8 hours and getting the same kind of just like, you know, decent to like not great items.
Yeah, people want to watch people who are like successful at what they do. Like, I don't know. Yeah, people don't want to watch the people who aren't doing well. Like, that's just kind of how it is. That's the way the world works. Like, unless you're like super entertaining, like you're a really entertaining person, like you have that it factor or whatever. I don't think I'm that person. Yeah, you got to be like successful doing well. People are like, oh wow, look at what this person's doing. That's kind of how it works.
So their thumbnails and their titles are just going to show their, you know, massive hauls and all of that. And I get that. But as somebody who's been reselling full time for like 4 years now, the cost of living is through the roof. So now people who have full-time jobs need to get a second job or a side hustle just to be able to make ends meet. They're not just doing that because, you know, they want to be a millionaire. They want to be super rich. Like tons of people are just trying to make a little bit extra money to just stay even what they were, you know, before COVID, 4 or 5 years ago. Everybody's on their phone, TikTok, you know, Instagram, obviously YouTube. They're going to start looking up ways to make extra money online, and you're going to find reseller content. They're clearly going to find the biggest channels first because they're going to get recommended first. They're going to find jride, they're going to find Tech and Sports, they're going to find like the picker channels like Homeschool Picker, all the people who get a lot of views because a lot of their content shows, you know, huge hits and really large amounts of money that they're making. And I'm not saying any of these YouTubers are liars or like faking their views or sales or anything. They're not. A lot of beginner resellers who would watch them could just think that they could replicate it wherever they are in the country, and that's really just not the case. Like I said in my last video, it seems like if you live in Utah, you should just become a reseller because the inventory that you could find at their Goodwills or their Desert Industries, whatever their thrift stores are, it's just like unbelievable inventory. There's no way. I don't think you can find anywhere else as good in the country. I think there's a similar case in the Texas area. I've seen Dallas Fort Worth seem like, I don't know, it seems like you get really Seems like you get really, really good inventory. Just a lot of really good clothing items. I would assume then also in Austin is a really booming area. Tons of places in Florida as well, because you have, I mean, there's no real nice way to put it, but you got a lot of old people there who end up...
All right, let's stop there. Texas, Utah, Florida. He nailed it. I mean, those places are amazing for this sort of stuff. I mean, there's so many resellers out of there. My buddy Sean Taylor at Taylor Exchange, he lives in Texas, but he has to drive like over an hour into the bigger city to find those items. And he actually knows Mike from K&M Resells. And yeah, K&M, they live like in the middle of the city. So they're going to the best racks every single day, which we need to talk more about that. That's what I do. I live in a very medium-sized town. I don't live in a big city, but I don't live in a small town. So my strategy is to pick up the best items I possibly can, but there's just not that many great stores here. So I just hit the honey hole stores, pick up the best items, and then I go home. So I don't try to make reselling my only income. I try to make money in other ways, because if I were to try to make more money in reselling, I would be wasting my time. I'd make less money per hour. I would have to go to the bigger city, drive to the bigger city, or I'd have to pick up worse items here, or spend more time picking up like way more time picking up items, like quadruple the amount of time just to find items that are worse, basically. So yeah, if you live in these bigger cities, you're going to be going to these new racks, and as they're rolling them out, you're going to take those items before anybody even gets to the thrift store. The days of going to the thrift store and like sifting through the racks and finding things is essentially over. I mean, it's just over. There's too many resellers. There's certain pockets of towns where maybe there's no resellers and you can get away with it. I'm not saying it's like impossible, but for the most part in these bigger cities, that's what's happening. They're literally being taken off the racks as they're being rolled out. That's what I'm doing. That's my strategy. And so that's what you have to do too. And yeah, in these bigger cities, they're much better, and you're competing against people who live there, who know the timings of every store, and they build their route around when these racks come out. So if you sift through the store, you're gonna find nothing. I don't even go through the stores anymore, guys. They roll out the racks, I pick up the items. Every once in a while, if I feel like I missed it, like they rolled out the racks and put them in the store, I just go through and find the few items that's like the new tag. So if the new tag is orange, I go through, find the few orange items, and that's it. I'm in and out of the store in 10 minutes, guys. Like, and I don't even go to the stores that don't get good stuff. I just go to the honey holes and just do that. Like, that's what needs to happen. And you're competing against people who are doing that.
Retiring and dying there. There's nonstop estate sales where you could get all these super old vintage items because they've literally been there for 40 years. And if you know what you're doing, you could just sell it to more people online. Tons of flea markets. I mean, that's where technsports makes his videos, showing that he goes to random like flea markets super early in the morning on Saturday and makes $1,000. It makes $2,000. Like, all the time. And again, I'm not saying anything bad about him. He's legitimately doing that.
Okay, I learned a lot. Let's talk about this. I learned a lot from technsports, and a lot of the things that technsports said about clothing reselling, I kind of was figuring out before they even made their podcast. And once he made the podcast, everything kind of clicked. And I was like, yes, I'm already kind of on this path of clothing and everything. And he has helped me out a lot. However, he is out of the game now, and I don't think that's like, I don't think it, he claims that he's just retiring. I don't think it's just that. I think there's just not as much money as there used to be. He is feeling probably in what seems to me burnt out because he's been working so hard to make way less money now than he used to. And, no disrespect to what he's doing, but that's what it seems like to me. He probably wouldn't admit that. But that's what it seems like to me. He can absolutely prove me wrong if he wants, but that's what it seems like to me. Doing these, because he used to get items coming to him, and if he's paying like $7 per item, this business does not have enough meat on the bones to hire everything out, the picker, the photographer, the lister, everything, and then really make a massive amount of money at the end of the day, unless you've been doing it a long time. And you already have everything built. I mean, you can, but there's just, honestly, if you're going to do all that, there's just, in my opinion, better business models. I think one of the best business models is just to have either a small team of 1 or 2 people helping you, or by yourself and, list 20 to 40 items a day, or I don't know, heck, even 10 to 40. Even for me, I'm doing like 17 items a day. And I'm thinking about going down just so I can raise my ASP and make more money per item, and only do this like, 20 hours a week and then focus on other businesses.
but you're not going to be able to find that kind of inventory all over the country. If you've seen my videos, I currently live in North Carolina. I moved from New Jersey, and if you watch my videos, I get decent stuff. There's nothing insane. Like I've told you, I probably make around $50,000 to $70,000 a year here, being able to do the reselling full-time, going to Goodwills like almost every day. If you watch my Thrift With Me videos, I do find decent stuff, nothing insane where I'm making, $1,000 a day, but I live in a nicer area that people have some money, so when they donate stuff, it is better inventory. But there's no way.
Sounds like we live in a similar area. Yeah, about that 50 to 70,000 mark sounds about right. I think that's fairly realistic for most people. If I wanted to make more than that, and I'm assuming it's the same goes for you, if you want to do like 100K a year or more net profit, like salary or whatever you want to call it, for those of you that have jobs and still call them salaries, yeah, you're going to have to drive to the bigger city. And personally, I don't want to do that. I've contemplated it for so long, and I'm just like, this isn't the business. Like, there's better ways to make money if that's what I have to do, essentially, is how I feel. Like, I'll stick to my town, make my 50 to 70K, call it a day. Hire stuff out so I don't have to work as much or whatever, so I can focus my time on building other businesses, making money in other ways.
That I'd be able to find the exact same stuff that I'm finding here if I lived back in New Jersey. And that could be the same case for you if you're wanting to become a reseller, full-time, part-time, whatever. You could watch these videos, think that you could just go out to Goodwill and make a whole bunch of money. You'll watch a few months worth of videos to find like brands and stuff to look for, and you go out to Goodwills and you just don't find anything. A lot of the people that you're going to see on YouTube are outlier resellers. I don't know what the percentage is. I mean, like the top 5% of resellers where you see them, big sales.
They're not top 5% of resellers. These are the top 0.1, if not even maybe even the 0.01% of resellers. At least some of these guys. I guess some of these guys claim to be top resellers, and yeah, they're maybe in the top 5 or 10%. But most of these guys, tech is like one of the best, right? As you get lower down the totem pole, maybe 5%. But most of these guys that are big on YouTube are like 0.1% people. I mean, I'm not a big YouTuber, and I think you and I, Zach, are 0.1% resellers. I mean, or at least no, or maybe not. Maybe we're 1% resellers. Let's say. I think we're 1% resellers.
Record-breaking weeks, record-breaking years, all of that. And there's a reason why I call them outliers.
Those people, by the way, they are a couple. So you have to consider we're not that far off from them if you just cut it in half and as solo people, right? Like they're a team. So a lot of these, YouTubers, they're doing it as couples, like Rally Roots and all these people. Like they're doing it like they're a couple. Like they have two people in the business that both have equal equity in the business. It's not like one person and an employee. It's two people who have equal equity. So, it's just something to think about. Like if you're by yourself, you're not going to do their numbers because you're one person. Like that's not going to happen, right?
Because most likely somebody who's just getting into reselling, you're just not going to become that. And that's coming from somebody who, I guess, without sounding like an ass, I would say at one point I was an outlier reseller. So if you've seen my older videos, and I think I've even put one up on this channel, but I had an older channel.
Well, then I just want to reiterate, if you're making 50 to 70 grand a year, net profit, you're an outlier reseller. Most people are not making that much. I know it doesn't feel that way because you're like, oh, I'm not rich or anything. But the fact that you can resell for a living, and make money to actually pay your bills, you are an outlier reseller. Most people are struggling.
And here's my performance in the last 31 days, literally right now. I mean, it's good, 11,000, and you could see that it's lower. I've realized that last month I had more sales because people got extra money back from taxes, so I got more items sold and obviously made more money, but still $8,000 this month, last 31 days. It's not bad, it's not insane, clearly compared to what I had before, but I mean, people would even kill for what I have right now.
So we have similar businesses right now. That's about how much I'm doing. I did get up to 15K at one point, and then I had some life stuff happen and it dropped. And now I'm hovering around where you are, and I think that's fine. I think somewhere around that 11 to 15K is where most people can probably make a living and do this and feel somewhat comfortable. But yeah, maybe not making a ton of money to retire, but at least they can pay their bills and just make a living at least.
And I still don't think it's enough. It costs me $4,000 a month to live here with my rent and everything. I mean, food, you know, car insurance, everything. It's around $4,000 a month. So me making $50,000 to $60,000, $70,000 a month, or I wish it was that much a month, a year. I mean, you're only talking anywhere from a few thousand to maybe like $10,000, $15,000 extra before taxes. So, you know,
So I agree. That $11,000 mark is not enough. I would like to get my account back up to like 14, 15,000. Like average, it can, you know, fluctuate by like $2,000, but as long as that's like kind of average, that's where I want to sit. And then I also am making money doing other things. So I do like the Amazon influencer program. I'm obviously doing YouTube, which isn't very much money, but it's something. And then I'm constantly trying to do other things like YouTube affiliates and TikTok affiliates and things like that. So I'm constantly trying to grow and not just make eBay my number one thing. I'm just trying to make that 60-ish grand, lower the amount of time it takes me to make that, and then focus on other things. That's my goal. And I think that's a lot of people in our situation. I really think that's the way to go instead of driving to the bigger city and competing against these people who live there who are literally getting this stuff as the people are rolling out the racks.
Even more of a chunk is going to get taken out there, but to invest into my future like retirement, because even if you make like, you know, just enough money or a little bit more money to live full-time reselling, I mean, you're not going to be able to do it till you're 90. I mean, we're all sitting in chairs all day looking down at our phones. You think we're going to be able to walk around and beat out other resellers at Goodwills when we're like 85 years old? No, we're going to have to retire. And if there's no 401...
This is why I am focusing on other businesses, because this business does take a lot of like physical effort. And yeah, we are going to have to retire, and I want to make A, more money, but B, by the time I retire, I want money coming in from ways that are even like, because I don't know if I'm ever going to retire. I probably will always be like kind of doing something, but eBay won't be it because it does take a lot of physical effort. Although I do know some older folks that I know that resell and they do just fine. So I don't know. I mean, you just can't go at the same pace or whatever. Is what it is.
Case you're working for yourself. You have to set that money aside all by yourself. So the amount of money you really have to make is 6 figures to be able to take all that extra income and save it, invest it, you know, not be stupid with it, just so you could be able to retire later in life and not actually have to, you know, elbow people at yard sales to try to get deals when you're like 75. And I know this video comes off as very negative, but I just want to be a little bit more realistic. I'm not saying you shouldn't watch any of these people. I still watch them to find out brands, you know, things that I don't know. That's literally the reason why I was able to transition from sneakers, because that plummeted, to being able to sell mostly men's clothes. I should really obviously get into women's clothing, but it's much harder for me being a guy. I just have no knowledge. I got to learn it completely through YouTube. But even the men's stuff,
okay, that's something that boggles my mind, dude. If anybody is complaining about how much money they're making reselling and they're going into stores and they're only doing some men's clothing, you have what's coming to you. Like, I realized a long time ago that when these racks roll out, I have to pick up what's on the rack, and most of the new racks that come out are women's clothing. So if you're just passing on the brand new inventory that is like factually going to be the best stuff in the store, you go through the entire store and you're not going to find as good stuff on average as those new racks that are coming out. So if you're not looking at those new racks just because you don't want to learn women's clothing, that's on you. Like as a reseller, you need to adapt and realize that like just doing men's clothing is kind of a thing in the past. Like, it's, unless you're one of those people that live in the big cities, you are at the mercy of what works in your town. And if men's clothing isn't doing it, it's not doing it. Like, you got to pick up the good stuff that gets rolled out. That's just how the game works. You know, it boggles my mind. I hear these resellers, I just do men's clothing, and they're struggling. It's like, if you're doing fine, that's great. Like K&M, like people like them, they live in the big city. They have 2 people scouring, you know, all the best stores. They know the routes in their city. They know when they're rolling out the stuff, so they can get away with it. And even them, I think, are starting to get into more women's clothing because of like what I said. If you're going to go through the new inventory, why would you? Like, maybe they're not focusing on it, but they're picking up the obvious like grails, right? Like, you can't just like pass on the crazy stuff. Today, I'm going to make a video about it. I literally found like 11 St. John's dresses that go for like over $100 at one store. If I didn't do women's clothing, I would have passed on that. It was my best day of all time. It was like over $1,000 day, and it only took me like 15 minutes. I didn't even go through the store. I walked in, they had like 3 new racks, and it was just on one rack. I literally went through one rack and made like over $1,000. And that's not common for me, but I would have missed that. I'm just saying things like that. Like if you're not doing women's clothing, you're gonna miss the good stuff. That's how it works. I mean, that's like 70% of the store. So that means you're missing 70% of the grail items. Think about that.
I didn't know much about, and I found it from other bigger YouTubers showing what they're picking up. So I don't think any of them are bad people or any of them are lying about their sales or their videos or whatever, their thumbnails. They're just in a better circumstance than like a majority of the people watching, thinking that they could do.
Because yes, they live in a better area, but they're probably also better resellers. That's just like cold hard fact. They have more knowledge. They've put more time into learning. After they come home, they do more research. So it seems like, oh, they're just in a better area, but they're grinding harder on sourcing, and they just know more. And if you're not finding items, yeah, you're not looking at the stuff coming out on the new racks. I think is a lot of what that is.
Do what you see online, and most of them just live in a really good place. Like I said before, some people just have insane connections with like wholesale companies where they just have truckloads of stuff come to their house, or their warehouse. If they have that, they have employees who take photos of all the listings so they don't have to do it themselves. They're just constantly churning out more and more sales, and I wish I could do that. I have way more capital, honestly, than most other resellers do, and I would be fine if I could somehow find a wholesaler that, even if I made like, I don't know, 25%, 50% margin, nothing crazy, like, people want to 10x their money.
50% margin on wholesale seems near impossible. Even 20%, I think, is like, might even be pushing it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, Goodwills. I'd be fine literally getting like 50% back. I would do that all day. I'd list 8 hours a day. I don't care. I just don't have that connection. But a lot of these bigger reseller channels do. So I'm not saying every single person who watches it and wants to be a reseller will fail. It'll just be a lot harder than it looks. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like, and I'll talk to you guys later.
All right, so what are my final thoughts? I like a lot of things that you said. The medium-sized towns, yes, that 50 to 70K mark is like the realistic mark. And if you want to make more than that, and you're not living in a bigger city, it's going to be tough. You're going to have to drive to the bigger city, and then you're going to be competing with the people that live in that town that intimately know those stores, that know exactly when the new stuff's coming out. And that's just what it is. It's going to be a lot harder for you. And, it makes sense. If you live in a medium-sized town, it's going to be harder to make more than the average income there. Whereas you live in a bigger city, the average income is going to be higher. So there's going to be better stuff. It's going to be easier for you to, make more money. And, as the resellers in their town, a lot of them are going to quit because they need to make more money to live. So it's like this ecosystem that kind of evens out where, here people can make a lot less and get by. So there's going to be more resellers that are okay with just making, the average income or whatever, whereas there, the average income's higher. So it's the whole ecosystem. That's the way it works. And if you want to drive to the bigger city, people do that with jobs all the time. They live in a smaller city. They commute to a bigger city to make more money, and then they live in their small town or whatever. That's how these things work in any field, right? The second thing is, on the flip side of that, it seems like there are a lot of things you could be doing, just watching from this video, that you could be doing better, and maybe your passion, and this is coming, I'm projecting a little bit off of myself. Maybe you're not as passionate about it as you used to be, and you're not learning as much and figuring these things out, and you don't want to learn women's. I know it took me a while to learn women's. I only learned women's off the new racks. And then I started watching people like Kaylee Eileen and stuff like that. Kaylee Elaine. For the longest time I thought it was Eileen, and I realized recently that I messed it up. Kaylee Elaine. People like her learning new things, but it took a while, and it was a necessary step that I realized, I have to look at these new racks. I have to learn women's. Otherwise, I have to go to the big city, and I wanted to do that, So there are things that you just have to learn as these things change. Like I said, the days of just going through the racks and like finding good stuff is over. Like it's just like in my town, it's not happening. There's literally tons of resellers just popping in stores all day long, and they're all rotating. I say hi to them all, and like there's a ton of them. And if you show up 5-10 minutes late after they roll out the racks, it's gone. It's already gone. Like you have to be there as they're rolling it out. And you just have to like kind of know the timings. That's how it works for me. And the amount of those new racks that are men's are very limited. So my advice, honestly, to anybody is make that 50, 70K reselling. Get good at it. Get to a point where you aren't spending your 40 or more hours on the business. Work your way down, get quick at everything. Like I only source like an hour and a half a day because I just go to the honey hole stores. I don't even go in the store. I just go, or I don't even search the store. I just go to the new racks, pick the stuff up, come home. Like it's easy. But yeah, I think a lot of people should just have reselling pay their bills and then focus on other things, learn how to make money in other ways. And I'm not going to tell you what those other ways are. You're going to have to figure that out for yourself. But that's what I'm doing. That's my strategy. And yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully I didn't piss anybody off, but we'll see.